What's going on, everyone, and welcome to the program, a special emergency podcast edition of Stateside Footy because Mauricio Pochettino has made his decision. He has spoken and has named a 25-man roster for the upcoming friendlies versus Panama in Mexico coming up this month. Actually, it's already October. Good Lord. Anyway, so very interesting. Some names that you would expect, and then some names that are pleasant surprises, and then there's some names that absolutely make zero sense for this roster. But we're going to get into it just a second. Before we get into it, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons, but also go ahead and share this on social media as we're trying to grow out this channel. That would be much appreciated. So let's go ahead and not bury the lead, and let's get right into it. The 25 names that Mauricio Pochettino has named. We're going to start with the goalkeepers, and he's named four goalkeepers for the second straight window. It's goalkeeper a go-go. The surprise name is going to be Zach Steffen, who has played his way back into the men's national team. He hasn't seen these parts in quite some time. After Greg Berhalter, unceremoniously dumped him from the roster. But since July, since essentially Leagues Cup, he has played exceptionally well to the point where it's kind of hard to leave him off. So Zach Steffen, congratulations! It's been a while, and this is a much earned call up based on the merit, and it's come a full circle. And if you remember, he took off for Manchester City, went out on loan a few times, really could never get a footing with Pep Guardiola, having to come back to Colorado in Major League Soccer. So I'm very happy to see that. And of course, Patrick Schulte gets named for the second straight window. For those who don't know, he plays for the Columbus Crew, best young starting goalkeeper in Major League Soccer. I don't think that's questionable. And of course, for those who don't know, he was with the U.S. men's Olympic team this summer in France, starting ahead of Gaga Slonina. And he's parlayed that now into two windows. So not necessarily surprised from that standpoint. The only problem that I have with Patrick Schulte is sometimes he gets himself caught out of position, sometimes leaves in soft goals. But as far as reflexes go, as far as soft hands, he's pretty good. There's better goalkeepers in the pool. But that being said, it's not necessarily a surprise to see Patrick Schulte back in this camp. The two names, obviously, that should not be on this list. Ethan Horvath of Cardiff City. For those that don't know, he got benched. He started the season by letting in one of the ugliest goals. To be honest with you, I don't think I've ever seen a goal, getting let in as bad as the one Horvath let in right at the start of the season. But of course, it was an issue of form. It was an issue of confidence to the point where he essentially became such a liability that Cardiff couldn't play anymore. So they benched him. Hasn't really featured lately. So that's an interesting name. And of course, Matt Turner gets named to this list. And Matt Turner had a terrible Copa America this last summer to the point where Nottingham Forest knocked him down to third string. He was the third keeper, didn't feature any of the cup matches. As we got closer to the end of the transfer window, he made that move actually on deadline day to Crystal Palace, and now he's the backup at Crystal Palace, and he's still not seeing the field, not in cup matches. Usually you would see that with just simple squad rotation, but unfortunately Matt Turner is not playing. So those two names, here's the weird part about this, right? So if you're going to go off of merit and bring Zach Steffen back into camp, then what is the point of bringing Horvath and Turner into this one? I sound like I'm repeating myself because I've been saying this for the last 6 months. You can't bring in guys who are not playing. Right? How does that help the bottom line of the men's national team? Bringing guys who are not in form, not in confidence, and obviously not playing. How is that going to help? It's like, okay, great, man. So you got veteran leadership. Okay, fine. But you can find that anywhere else. especially as as we get to defenders, because Tim Ream's on this list as well too. So we have that veteran, that veteran presence that are going to push some of these young guys. The idea of having Matt Turner and Ethan Horvath here, to me, makes absolutely no sense. And I'll say it again. I wanted to see Gaga Slonina in this one. I get it, right? He plays in League One. He plays for Barnsley. I understand. That's obviously not his. That's not his fault. Being moved towards the end of the transfer window when most teams had their keeper situations already settled. And I understand, man. The last, he's rebounded over the last 2 starts. He had that little stretch right there of 3 games where he just didn't look all that great, but he's rebounded quite nicely. Considering he started this season absolutely on fire, 3 men of the match awards in his first 4 starts, kind of goes without saying. He was snubbed in the September window, and it looks like he just got snubbed again. It is what it is, but those are the 4 goalkeepers. In the context of starting, I'd like to see Zach Steffen and Patrick Schulte. That's it. I mean, you can start Steffen right away against Panama, and I don't think you're going to miss much. But if you want to throw Schulte into the fire, then yeah, start him in Mexico, 100%. That would be a nice way to to really kick off your USMNT career by playing in a rivalry game in hostile territory. That would be absolutely phenomenal, but chances are pretty good we might see Matt Turner in that game against Mexico, which would be an absolute travesty. But it is what it is, man. Mauricio Pochettino is the man. So if he deems Matt Turner worthy of that match against Mexico, then so be it. Turning to the defenders now, he's named 8 defenders. Marlon Fossey gets called back in, and I absolutely love this. For those who don't know, he plays in the Belgian Pro League, and he was absolutely phenomenal in that last match versus New Zealand. He was pacey up the flanks. He was also able to track back. Position wise, he looked like a veteran. He was absolutely brilliant in that match against New Zealand. Granted, it was New Zealand, but still, he stuck out. He stuck out quite well. And his touch, his ability to pass, his ability to stop, create space, and still get up the field is absolutely phenomenal. And I'm glad he's here. Christopher Lund is also back for. He plays in Serie B. Lund was a part of the last window as well too. Got some playing time against Canada, and he was fine. Wasn't great. Wasn't terrible. Mark McKenzie gets brought in. He plays for Toulouse in Ligue 1. Tim Ream is back in, which should not be a surprise. Just considering that Chris Richards is out with an injury, he's not a part of this camp. It was almost a foregone conclusion that Tim Ream was going to be a part of this one. Anthony Robinson comes back after taking last window off for rest. He's back in, which is absolutely a much needed boost and a much needed lift to this defense that literally had no answer against Canada. So it's nice to see him back. Miles Robinson will make an appearance again for the USMNT. We haven't seen him in an American shirt since the Summer Olympics, where he was not all that good at all. Joe Scally comes back from Germany as a right back option from Borussia Mönchengladbach, and Austin Trusty will be the final defender named. Of course, he's with Celtic now. Played yesterday, I believe, against Dortmund in a match where Celtic got absolutely crushed. 5-1. Had no business being on the same field as Dortmund, but it is what it is. Trusty's here, and this is going to be kind of interesting because, I would probably assume against Panama, you'll probably see Anthony Robinson on the left side. And if Pochettino was smart, you're going to want the guy who's going to be able to play on the overlap and play inverted, and that's Marlon Fossey. Joe Scally's fine defensively, but he gives you absolutely nothing as far as up the pitch offensive production. That's just not his game. And I would probably assume you're going to see Mark McKenzie and Tim Ream as the center back pairing. I don't think you can really play Miles Robinson at this point. It hasn't really been the same since the Achilles injury. He applies straight through Major League Soccer. The surprise name on this list that was omitted was Walker Zimmerman. I thought Zim was going to be a part of this camp. As far as the U.S. center back pool, he's the only one that has aerial ability, the ability to get up on set pieces. To me, I think that's the biggest bugaboo about our center backs. Not a lot of them can, not a lot of them can play in the air. I thought he would have came in handy in this one. But it was not to be. So I would probably assume that you're going to see Tim Ream and Mark McKenzie both matches. You want to give yourself the best opportunity, especially that first game against Panama. You don't really want to mess around. The last thing you want to do is have yourself a bad showing carrying into that match against Mexico. You want to have as much confidence going into the match as possible, or there's a good possibility that Mexico is going to run you right off the pitch. But for me, it's going to be Fossey, McKenzie, Ream, and Anthony Robinson, and that would be at least a solid-ish back four. You might think about playing Trusty. You could. You wouldn't necessarily lose a lot, but I don't think you can put yourself in a position to play Miles Robinson at all. He is like in case of glass break, in case of emergency break glass type of situation. So I like some of these names. I love Marlon Fossey's back in this one, and that makes me happy. Turning to the midfield now, Pochettino announced that Brendan Aronson will be a part of this one. I like Brendan. He plays the 10, almost a false nine role for Leeds. Gianluca Busio, that was a pleasant surprise. He plays for Venezia and Serie A. Now they're at the bottom of the table, but for the last 3 matches, Busio has pretty much been their best player on the pitch. He really stands out. Can play 3 different positions in the midfield if you really need to. He can be that 10 if you need it, but generally speaking, he's kind of your deep line playmaker. Played that role at the Olympics and played it well. And this is a situation where you want to see Busio in a U.S. shirt, because that's a situation where how much do you trust Yunus Musa at this point, right? And this is an opportunity for a young guy to come in, make some noise, impress Pochettino, and who knows maybe how that will work itself out. Johnny Cardoso also gets on this list as well too. Johnny plays for Real Betis in La Liga, and he was decent to start the season, but lately he has not been good at all. As a matter of fact, hasn't featured for a little bit. And that's a little alarming, just considering that right now with Tyler Adams out, that position at the 6 is wide open, and it's just interesting that he would be on this list. That's all I'm saying. Weston McKennie is back in the fold from Juventus, and that's another guy who was missed last September during that Canada-New Zealand window, as he was just getting himself back into the fold there in Juventus, and so they didn't bring him in. So it's nice to see McKennie back in the fold. He's actually going to be a very big player for this team, and in the context of this window against Panama and Mexico, it's nice to have McKennie back in the fold. Aiden Morris also makes this list. The thing I like about him, he plays for Middlesbrough, and again, it's the same situation as Cardoso, although the difference is Aiden Morris is playing incredibly well for Middlesbrough in the championship. Has hit the ground running in that league, playing pretty well. Last couple starts haven't been as good, but that being said, he's still holding his own out there. And again, in the context of the fact that the U.S. men's national team doesn't have a 6 right now, again, it's the same situation of being able to put himself in front of Pochettino and potentially take that position and make it his. Yunus Musa is back into camp, and that's going to be an interesting one. Plays for AC Milan, and unlike Christian Pulisic, doesn't have a position there. and he also has not been featured lately. The biggest problem with Yunus Musa is the fact that he has yet to lock down a position there at AC Milan. So they've been using him at right back. They've been using him as a D mid. They've been using as a deep line, a deep line 8. They used him as a winger, as a 10 one time. It's just, they have him scattered. And he's like one of those type of players that, can play everything, but, does he play anything? Does he play any one position particularly well? That's an interesting one. That's a very good question. But he's also 21 years old. He's been a USMNT mainstay for a little bit. So he's back in camp. And Malik Tillman from PSV. And this is no surprise. Gio Reyna obviously hurt for Dortmund. And the fact that the U.S. men's national team desperately needed 10. This is also a position of need for Mauricio Pochettino. His attacks do not run without a good high roaming distributing 10. And Malik Tillman, although he does play on the wing a little bit for PSV, that's actually not even a little bit. He plays on the right side for PSV. But two matches ago he had the brace, so he's coming in form, which is good timing as far as Mauricio Pochettino is concerned, because this is going to be an area of need. Turning to the forwards now, Flo Balogun, not surprising. He scored in 2 straight Ligue 1 matches for Monaco, and again, we talk about timing. Timing is everything. And this has been a problem for Balogun, just considering that, since he's made the move to Monaco, for whatever reason, there's just been an issue of form. And every time he's come in with the national team, albeit for that one match, it was the goal against Panama in Copa America. Outside of that, he's, hasn't really contributed much to the national team. But that being said, like goalkeeping, strikers are all about confidence. And the only way you get confidence is by putting the ball in the back of the net. And, over the last two matches, he's certainly done that. So that's pretty good. And so who knows, you're wondering whether or not that's going to finally translate to the national team. And I absolutely hope it does, because that's a very key position for the U.S. Ricardo Pepi will be joining the team again this window, and I don't know why Pepi's here. I just don't know why. He is getting some minutes for PSV, but and I understand he started. The last match he played, he started. Got a brace, okay, that's great, but you're only getting 10 minutes per match with PSV, playing behind Luke de Jong, who is their captain, who is just a phenomenal baller. And for the most part, that's his role. His role is to come in the last 10 minutes and play, and whatever happens, happens. But yet he's still continuing to get called to the national team. And it's been a minute since he's actually, delivered for the national team. I don't know how you guys feel, but I'd rather see somebody else in that position. And I know I get a ton of shit for this, but it is what it is, man. I would rather see Jordan Morris in this position. And the reason is simple, man. He's on fire in Major League Soccer. I think he scored in 19 out of the last 23 league matches, including twice in Leagues Cup. Considering that Seattle doesn't have a lot of, attacking options, the fact that he's basically been the focal point where defense is key on him and he's still able to put the ball in the back of the net, that says a lot, man. And I'd rather take the guy who's in form. It's no disrespect to Pepi. I mean, if he was starting and he was lighting up the Eredivisie, there is no contest. But, this isn't tournament play. These are friendlies. And in the context of bringing in a third striker, I would rather take the guy who's in form. Christian Pulisic, obviously Captain America, played in the Champions League, I believe it was yesterday, against Bayern Leverkusen, and Leverkusen ended up taking that one. He was pretty much quiet in that match yesterday, but prior to that, he had scored in 4 straight. He's absolutely on fire, in form. And this is exactly the perfect time for, Christian to be with the national team. Makes a tremendous amount of sense because, we're going to need the captain specifically for these two friendlies, especially down in Mexico. What can you say about Christian? I mean, the talk of his form, people are using the term world class. Now, I don't necessarily know if it goes that far, but he is certainly right now playing as the best player in Serie A with AC Milan. And with Mauricio Pochettino, the question isn't, the question for me is what side of the field he's going to play on. Is Mauricio going to keep him on the right side, of which he plays with AC Milan, or is he going to play him on the left, which is his favorite position? Because Tim Weah is a part of this camp as well too. But the issue with Tim Weah was that he picked up that knock with the ankle. So is Tim Weah going to be available this window? I mean, he's on the roster. Is he going to play? That's going to be an interesting dynamic as we move forward, as we get closer to this camp. Josh Sargent was named to this list as well too, and I'm glad because Sargent to me is the guy who should be starting right now. When you look at his form, this last weekend had 2 assists. But you look at his form from the beginning of the season all the way to this point. He is clearly, if not the best striker, then he's like number 2 in the championship. The dude is absolutely fantastic. And when you're talking about what type of striker Mauricio Pochettino likes, it's the ability to hold up. It's the ability to drop down deep, to take a touch, to keep possession. But it's also if you're playing up and you're playing a little drawn, then your ability to distribute. He does all of that right now for Norwich, and of course he can score goals. The interesting thing with Josh is last year he got hurt a little, but still managed 16 goals in 24 games for Norwich, and he's carried that form into the season. The last camp, he didn't even suit up for that second game. The word was that he took a little knock on the ankle, but 2 days later he was in suit for he had suited up for Norwich and played the entire 90. So you tell me, he has to be starting. It's going to be interesting to see how that's going to play out in training. But if Pochettino's smart, he's going to play Sargent at least against Panama. Obviously, I mentioned it earlier. Timmy Weah is in this camp. Was held out from the September camp. And again, that's the interesting thing. Did not play this last match with Juventus because of what was called as an ankle injury. And I just didn't think that he would be a part of this one. I thought a guy like Paxton Aronson might get called in, which made a lot of sense because Pax just scored in his last match. And, I just thought that, maybe in the context of this one that they'd probably hold him out and just let him recover from that ankle knock, but he's here. So that means he's probably playing, which is great because, in the context of speed, he's got it, the ability to stretch back lines, his ability to play the channels. Timmy Weah is pretty good, man. Timmy Weah is pretty goddamn good. And lastly, Haji Wright was called into this one. And that one's interesting. Well, he has not been playing well for Coventry. He got off to a very hot start, got a brace to start off this campaign. It was looking like everything was going to get off to a good start, and then all of a sudden he got cold over the course of the last month. And then he saw his playing time diminish a little bit. In his last start, he only played 45 minutes. Played a half, got pulled. So that in itself is an interesting one. And for those who don't know, he plays on the left side for Coventry in the championship. He's for that level, he's pretty good. But again, it all comes down to form. And so when asked about how he landed on these players, Pochettino did mention that he took advice from the national team, and those I guess in the know, which seems kind of interesting. Pochettino has been spotted in Europe. I think he was at the Arsenal PSG game. which is kind of interesting considering no U.S. men's national team members play for Arsenal or PSG. I think he was just over there to watch a good football match. Makes sense. But that was but that in itself was that was how he came at this decision. And I don't know about you. I'm not a big fan of that. I was expecting something different. Now, when I say different, I'm not talking about the usual guys, the Anthony Robinsons of the world, the Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa, Malik Tillman, Balogun, Sargent, Pulisic. Like I wasn't, that I was expecting, but it was kind of the back end of this roster that I was expecting something a little different. I was hoping that we were going to see some merit-based call-ups because there's guys overseas that are actually playing incredibly well at the moment. Like the idea that Johnny Cardoso got called in. When his playing time was reduced with Real Betis, I'm happy that Luca De La Torre didn't get brought in. He's not playing for Celta de Vigo either. So I was hoping that we were going to see some merit-based inclusion, like Tanner Tessman, who just made his first start for Olympique Lyon in Ligue 1. Now, granted, it's his first start, and it wasn't anything spectacular. But that being said, he's worked his way back into he's worked himself back into a point where it made actual sense to bring him in. Where now all of a sudden that stock is rising, and it made sense at the very least to bring him in and have a look at him. With Johnny, it's just interesting. I would probably expect that Aiden Morris is going to get both of those starts. Johnny, I don't want to use the word lost, but he technically, tactically did not look good in that Canada match. And when you factor in his current situation and the lack of form that he's playing with, to the point where he's not really playing a lot. That probably that shouldn't have been, warranted a call up. I probably would have brought in Tessman. I think that made a lot of sense. As far as the center back pairing goes, again, I thought that Walker made a little bit more sense over Miles Robinson. Miles has not been the same since the Achilles injury, and for the level of Major League Soccer, he's fine. But when you start getting into that level of the speed of international play and the physicality in which you're going to experience, especially in CONCACAF. CONCACAF, for as much shit as people give CONCACAF, you're going to see a lot of toughness, man. You're not going to see any easy matches. And I don't know, man. I just don't think Miles Robinson made a lot of sense through this one. I would have taken the guy who's good in the air, which is Walker Zimmerman. I just think tactically he's a lot better. I think he's better with the ball at his feet as well too. But Tim Ream, okay. Mark McKenzie, okay, that's fine. I'm good with that. But if you're going to bring in that third center back, it better be Austin Trusty, and Miles Robinson should just keep his ass on the bench. But outside of that, the idea that Ethan Horvath and Matt Turner are here, it's disappointing. And that's the thing. It's like I get it. They're as of right now, they're their most experienced goalkeepers in the pool. But that being said, you brought Zach Steffen in for a reason, so hopefully you're going to play him in Schulte. I just don't. it's an interesting thing, right? Because when you're taking advice from U.S. Soccer, of course they're going to name Turner and Horvath, right? But this was Mauricio Pochettino's first opportunity to excite the fan base on top of the excitement that we already have, and I don't know, man. Bringing 4 keepers and 2 keepers that aren't playing, it leaves a lot to be desired, but it is what it is. Overall, if I was to pick a starting 11 right now, I would have to go with Steffen in net. I would go Anthony Robinson at left back. I would go Tim Ream left center back, Parker McKenzie right center back, and then I would go Marlon Fossey at the right back. I put Aiden Morris at the D mid. I would start Malik Tillman and Gianluca Busio in the midfield. I would have Sargent up top, and I would have Pulisic on the left and Way on the right, and that's how I would attack it. If Weah can't go, then I would actually have Pulisic on the right, and then I'd probably start Haji Haji right on the left. Outside of that, this lineup pretty much picks itself. I don't know, man. Do tell me what you guys think. Leave your comments, and tell me what you overall think of this roster. Do you agree with it? Was there names that you were looking for? I know for a fact I was looking for Gaga Slonina in net. It didn't happen, such is life. But and again with Walker Zimmer as well too. And again, I thought that Paxton Aronson probably should have been on this roster instead of Ricardo Pepi. But you tell me, how do you feel about this? And how do you feel like this roster stacks up against Panama and Mexico? Go ahead and leave your comments in the comment section. Go ahead and hit the like button as well too, and of course hit the subscribe button. We're going to be back tomorrow because we're going to play a game of power ranking with the striker position. So definitely keep an eye out for that on the social media platforms. Speaking of which, go ahead and head over to X and find me at Stateside Footy, which it's in the name description right there. And of course, we're on Instagram as well too at Stateside Footy 76. And we're always pumping out new content. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Remember, like and subscribe. You guys have a great day. We're back tomorrow with power rankings, and then we're back on Friday as well too. So definitely check it out. Thank you guys. Have a great afternoon.